What's up and welcome back to another video. Today, I want to bring an idea to the table that could change and improve the core experience that we know and love. Can we get an open beta in Borderlands 4? While I have no idea if there are any plans for a Borderlands 4 beta, I want to at least discuss the option of one in hopes that someone at Gearbox will at least see this and maybe take it into consideration. And the definition of an open beta will be on the screen, but essentially it's a preview of an upcoming release to let gamers across the globe and fans playtest and discover any potential bugs and issues, usually to try and prevent a lot of the week 1 patches that we see these days with broken games being released constantly, as well as to gain a little bit of interest in the property, whatever they're trying to release, and to build up a little bit of hype. We know this proof of concept has worked in the past with other big AAA releases. Hell, I think Call of Duty's had an open beta for every year now for a while. And while that franchise is slowly getting flushed down the toilet and out into the septic tank, the position that Gearbox is in, they don't have to worry about putting out a new Lands game every year or so. Meaning that perfecting these releases should be the goal, right? Well, with Borderlands, looking back on the early days of any game in the franchise, we've had so many broken elements to these games at launch, whether it be guns not being balanced properly, bosses that have no dedicated loot drops, skills being completely broken, and even some of them being completely useless. Bosses not respawning, glitches, and all the metas and the different builds that are going to be figured out that are going to dominate the early patches of the game, only for them to be nerfed into oblivion weeks or months later. Well, in my eyes, a beta would quite literally resolve all of these issues. You could avoid making the players feel like they've wasted their time figuring out what works, only for developers to patch the game and completely change how the gear performs. My god, this has been a plaguing issue in the Borderlands franchise, especially during the first year of each game's life cycle. Think about all the builds that were created during the early years of Borderlands 3, Borderlands 2, and even Borderlands 1, even though that game's a lot less popular. And you know what, the pre-sequel's an even better example. There's so much shit from all of these games that have just been completely nerfed or made irrelevant by patches that were made in the future. There's just so many variables with these games, they'll never be able to release one without a list of bugs, glitches, and unbalanced items. And that's to no fault of the developers other than the fact that they don't hire playtesters who have actually played the fucking games. Let's say they did though. For a good example, let's just say that 100 playtesters are sat down with Borderlands 4 and every single one of them started at Borderlands 1 and they've played it all. They've seen it all. They've seen the ups and downs just like we all have. Let's say they give these Borderlands veterans 3 months to look for any of the issues that I've stated. You know, to try and find all the different bugs and game-breaking glitches, and to figure out which guns also need to be patched and settled down just a little bit, or maybe some of them need some buffs because they're a little too weak. Even then, there are so many layers behind the formula of this franchise. There's no way in hell they can figure out every little issue and every overpowered meta that the players will go on to discover. Because no matter how many playtesters you hire, the hundreds of thousands of players that jump in during release will. So why not give us a chance to play the game just a little bit early? Even if the Borderlands 4 open beta was only just for a week, it would be enough time for players to at least establish what different strategies and builds are dominant or just flat out broken. Also, with Gearbox's track record of releasing completely broken games, even outside of the Borderlands series, it makes it an even better idea to open up your most beloved property to the public. I also want to mention that the rumors are running rampant about Borderlands 4 being outsourced to another developer. Shades of Borderlands the pre-sequel being given to 2K Australia. And if that's true, if Borderlands 4 has been given to another studio, that immediately worries me to death. And while the pre-sequel is completely playable and fine for what it is now, at the time of release, many of the issues that I stated earlier were present during those early months of the game, and even longer than that. And the nerfs and patches came filing in, one after another. And while we're never going to be able to completely avoid meta builds and broken mechanics in these games, with an open beta we can at least prevent as many of these patches as we can. As trying to figure out the nuts and bolts that need a little extra grease, I think that should be a necessary part of the process of making a solid product. So now that I've had a brief explanation of why a beta would do wonders for the 4th installment of Borderlands, now I'm going to give my interpretation of what a Borderlands 4 beta would look like. Give the players access to go from level 10 to 15. If they wanted to go all out, they can make us go from level 1 to 10 or 1 to 15, but I can understand they don't want to give away too much of their story. A simple middle ground for the first playthrough, so you can at least give the player one story mission. If they want to give us that, they really don't have to give us any story missions at all. But one would at least be ideal. But the main point of this would be the side quests and all the other side missions up to that point. And while that may seem like I'm asking for a lot, between levels 1 to 15, you'll have gotten plenty of side missions with unique quest rewards, and at least some of them, as well as some legendary items that are hopefully thrown into some mini bosses loot pools, will be overpowered or broken in some way or another. Whether it be in connection with a skill on a certain character or the synergy of them with a class mod. There's always going to be some sort of broken mechanics that don't get figured out, and letting us fans figure them out for you would be an awesome way to avoid backlash from the fans for patching their gear that they spent hours farming. Let's say some of the bosses in the beta don't respawn, but they have cool loot attached to their pool. Player feedback during that beta would help them decide whether or not to leave the boss a one-time kill or give us the ability to kill him over and over again. Certain decisions like this can't be made alone, and even with multiple hands on the project, no one truly knows what they're doing. They're just trying to craft something together that the fans will enjoy, hopefully. So let's just hope that they know what they're doing, because more than likely, even with all the pros to a beta that I've listed, I don't want anybody to hold their breath, as Gearbox isn't exactly popular for doing open betas. Battleborn was their biggest project to get an open beta, and with the lackluster reaction from the fans, I can assume it was far from a hoot. While I don't know how that beta worked or how it went or was received or anything like that, Battleborn is primarily a co-op experience, unlike Borderlands, which falls further into the single player route with some multiplayer elements thrown in. So we can't directly say, oh, the beta would be a failure because of what happened to that game. That would just be idiotic. A Borderlands 4 beta would do numbers, and more than that, it would actually do some good for the release. As long as a couple bugs and problems the players have are sorted out in between the beta and release, I'd call it a win, as that's less complaints you'll have to deal with later on, it's less items and gear in the game that you'll have to fix and rebalance, and there would be a hell of a lot less poor reactions to the game when it does come out. I don't want to see the quality of the franchise continue to slip, but unfortunately, without a beta, the odds of the downhill trend continuing are quite high the way it sits, as the chances for a beta to actually happen are slim to none. The amount of effort Gearbox would have to put forth to make this a successful move is so much more than we players and fans will ever understand, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. The question is, will it? Can we get an open beta in Borderlands 4? Well, the simplest answer I can give you is yes. But will we see an open beta for Borderlands 4? More than likely not. I think Gearbox is just too comfortable in their position in the industry. They've proved even when their games don't sell, they'll still find a way to get those sales up by the end of the year. So when the earnings call comes around, they have to break down those digits. It doesn't look like one of those games flopped or sold poorly. You know, New Tales, Pandora's Box. Simply put, I don't think it bothers Gearbox to see the decline in their biggest franchise. As long as it still brings in enough money to pay the bills, they're going to continue to fork out just enough to keep us fans wanting more, only for us to get food poisoning and wish we'd have just went down the street to our local McDonald's. And that's really all I've got for you guys today. I hope you all did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to smash a like on it and subscribe if you guys are new. Do you think a Borderlands 4 beta would be a good idea? Why or why not? Please let me know in the comments below. I want to thank you for watching this video in its entirety. I really did think this was a great ass idea for the Borderlands franchise. I think the 4th game needs a beta, and if we don't see one, we're just going to run into the same issues that we did with Borderlands 3, Borderlands the pre-sequel, even Borderlands 2, and even Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. We've run into issue after damn issue with these games, and a beta is only going to give the players more opportunities to work these problems out for you. So Gearbox, since you don't want to fix these issues on your own, please let us help. But yeah, I don't really have much more to say, you guys. I love you all to death. I want you guys to take it easy out there and stay safe as always. And with that, I will see you all in the next one.